what is going on, everybody? What's happening? How's it hanging? How's everybody doing today? You know, all that jazz. You know who it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by my song of the day, Rock 2000 to today. It's a Tuesday. It's September 24th. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. As this episode, oh my lord, do we have the amount of new music to talk to. My god, there was a lot of it. But before we really jump into that, of course, I gotta do my shameless plugs. So, you know, if I had advertised this, where it would go, but I don't, so I'm just going to kind of give you the rundown real quickly. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow our Alexa skill. I may have to make sure because, oh my god, she didn't actually go off. Woo! Okay, so for all that stuff, you're going to get to know what the song of the day choice is. You get to know what podcast episodes are coming out. You can see the previews for those. What's going on with YouTube videos. We do the album reviews, band reviews, a whole bunch of longer form content. On Instagram, we do Instagram live streams every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. So you guys can come talk to us for an hour. We're getting a great conversation all about music and everything that has been going on. And I'm already getting sweaty. I just started this. I don't get this. But I digress. Yeah, and then we also do IGTV videos. So our IGTV videos, that's a behind-the-scenes look of kind of what's going on in our heads and what kind of maybe to expect in the future, kind of plans that we're having. Also, we're trying to do TikTok as well. I still have no idea what I want to do with it right now. So I kind of have an idea, actually. I talked with one of our friends, Andrew Schuler. He was on a podcast before this, somewhere in the 20s there. I think it was like 22 or 23 he was on. I wish him the best out in California because he is moving out there. And yeah, so let's get going, shall we? I mean, you've probably heard all my jazz about what we do here on my song of the day, Rock 2000 a day. It's the best rock community on the internet, or so as I call it, because we're going to get you your fill of rock music no matter what with song of the day choices. You're going to get bands you know, bands you don't know, smaller bands that you're going to have to know sooner or later, because once rock music gets big again, yeah, these bands are going to be huge. So I want to make sure that you get in on them as early as possible. So if you're listening to us right now, you know, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and on YouTube. But now, as I digress, and man, I cannot believe this. I'm looking at my right arm right now. I literally just started this podcast, I don't know how many minutes ago, only a couple. But, like, it's the middle of September. It's almost fall. I'm sweating. I'm going to sweat right through my shirt, right through my shorts. I just don't understand this. I am just sweating right now. What the hell is going on? This makes absolutely no sense. But you know what? Enough with me complaining and bitching and moaning about being sweaty and hot and whatnot. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with the show. And we have a bunch, and I mean a bunch of new music to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about, this is we're going to get a lot more of the meat and potatoes of it, because I will have an album review on it coming out in a couple of days or something like that. Or no, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. So what are we going to be talking about? Metalcore gods, basically. As I Lay Dying released their 7th album, Shaped by Fire, this past Friday. We also had the Agonist releasing Orphans this past Friday. We also had Blink-182 coming out with their 9th album, 9, this past Friday. We had the Foo Fighters doing some crazy EP stuff for the Storm Area 51. They Can't Stop All of Us. Fun stuff. We'll talk about that as well. And then also we have a, We have a confirmed release date for the new Saint Asonia record, Flawed Design, and a new single for it as well, which I'll talk about. But let's go into As I Lay Dying first. So for those of you who are not familiar with As I Lay Dying, I mean, they're a metalcore band, and their last album came out in 2012. I believe it was called Awaken. Let me see if it was. Awakened. I forgot the id at the end of it. So Awakened came out in 2012, and the band was actually flying pretty high, where the point where Loudwire actually labeled them as the best metal band of the year, beating out bands like Anthrax and beating out bands like Lamb of God. And I have to throw this in here, beating out bands like Slipknot, because we all know about Loudwire and their love affection for Slipknot. I mean, a week leading up to the release of We Are Not Your Kind, they had this whole entire Slipknot week, and it went on for like 3 or 4 different weeks. Are you kidding me? It just kept going on and on and on and on and on to the point where I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what is this? But I digress. So, all of a sudden, the band just disappeared out of nowhere. Well, it wasn't disappeared out of nowhere, but the band kind of went, I'll put it this way, they went away. And what I mean by went away was their lead singer, Tila Lambesis, was arrested in May of 2013. Now, why was he arrested? He pleaded not guilty to hiring an undercover detective / hitman to kill his estranged wife. Now, he initially pleaded not guilty with his lawyer saying that his thought process was devastatingly affected by steroid use, which, yeah, steroids can easily affect your thought process, but that doesn't give you, any kind of a thought or right to kill somebody just because you're estranged from them. He ended up pleading guilty after a while, and then he ended up having to serve a sentence of 6 years in prison starting in May 2014. Now, the rest of the band at this point, I mean, they did their best to distance from Tim, and they actually started their own project, which had been in the works before the sentencing came down, called Woven War. So they didn't want to necessarily play under that As I Lay Dying moniker because they didn't have Tim there. That's just kind of what happened. So let's jump forward to 2016. So I believe Woven War had 2 EPs or something like that out by that point. Oh, something's wrong with my other computer right now. Well, fuck that. Not happy about that. Okay, so let's go back to it. So let's jump to 2016 when Tim was actually released from prison a little bit early, and he decided to try and reconnect with members of As I Lay Dying. Now, of course, this ain't going to be an easy process to reconnect with the members of the band due to the fact of what basically you kind of put them through and your previous actions. So they were initially very hesitant and standoffish, especially I believe Nick Hippa, the guitarist, was. Now, they're, again, very standoffish, trying to distance themselves as far as possible, but over time throughout 2017, as the band had put it, they were seeing noticeable changes in his character to the point where he wasn't that same person that he used to be anymore. So it's like, okay, they kind of reconnect with him. They're talking with him. They ended up reconciling with him. And after a while, I mean, each member did take a different amount of time to reconcile with Tim, but after a while, they came back and they began working on new music back in like September 2017. And then they had this tour of with live shows that were coming up in 2018. And there's a lot of people that were psyched, but a lot of people were very, very, very angry at this to the point where there was a good amount of venues that canceled their specific tour dates in 2018 due to public backlash, which we have definitely seen rise in, well, I'm going to say public backlash to the point where events are getting canceled, especially probably over the past 4 or 5 years. So they were definitely in there. And I mean, it didn't necessarily really affect them because they released their first single, My Own Grave, back in 2018. And I'm going to quickly talk about My Own Grave before I get into the more meat and potatoes of this. So it was released in June of 2018 with an accompanying music video. And it was just all 5 guys in the band just straight up jamming in a room. And that was it. And I looked at it, I thought, you know what? That is a very smart move on this one because no one has heard from the band since like 2013 when we found out about Tim. And now it's been 5 years later, and the band is kind of back together. And it just shows them jamming out, having a good time together, which I thought was very, very well done. Now, I'm going to talk about the meaning of the album as we go forward, but kind of take a look at the song specifically. It did have this darker, more confused tone, which mixed well with the overall meaning of the song and with the overall meaning on the album, which you can pretty much tell at this point was all about what happened during those couple of years and how Tim's thought process was going and how to relate it to things that you're going through in your life. And the verses have this deeper, unclean vocal pattern, which really mix well with this underlying instrumentation that is a darker and more confusing tone because you just don't know what to expect. And it's a song called My Own Grave, so you're digging your own grave, so it really makes sense for that. Now, the chorus I really did like on this one, and the kind of cool thing about it is, now this one came out in June 2018, but this is something that really reminded me of the way that was style constructed, and I'm going to say this for the whole album as well. it really reminded me of the Holy Hell album by Architects, which came out in 2018. Now, the reason I'm going to use that as my comparison, as kind of, well, I'll say a lot of comparisons, because you're going to get the metalcore style from both bands, and when both bands release these albums, they're coming off of some kind of event that really affected the band in a large way. With As I Lay Dying, it was Tim's arrest. With Architects, it was the death of guitarist Tom Cyril, and I just got to talk about it, guys, so that's kind of the best comparison, because it's the band coming back, sticking with their sound, and just showing that they're back, and that, they're not going to let that get past them. They're not going to forget the memory of it. So, as time went on, As I Lay Dying ended up releasing 4 total singles on this one. So, in April of 2019, they released another one called Redefine that featured Jake Lurs of August Burns Red. Then when they announced the album on August 9th, 2019, I was actually in Croatia, and someone told me, I'm like, holy fucking shit! Like, oh, yeah, let's go! It was called Shaped by Fire, so they released the title track, Shaped by Fire. And then a week before the album's released, they released the song Blind. So they had 4 total singles on the track, 12 songs. Now let's get into all of them, because I really did go a deep dive into them. So it starts out with this track called Burn to Emerge. And Burn to Emerge is like this real intro kind of song. And it's kind of meant to extend an intro onto Blinded, because Blinded's only about a 3-minute song. And it talks all about Tim wanting to ask for forgiveness from the fans, saying that he was blinded by what he was doing, and that he's accepting what has happened and just really wants your forgiveness. And, also kind of prompts you to think, have you ever felt that way? Have you? I absolutely love the music video for this one as well, and accompanying with Burn to Emerge, because the music video was just the guys in a room and a bunch of people around basically mosh pitting, and I loved it. And with the intro moving into Blinded, because Blinded is this really nice, hard track, and it's straight metalcore with Tim's unclean vocals right at the start, and it makes you want to mosh, and the intro really builds that up as well with Burn to Emerge, and holy shit was I a big fan of this one. It worked out really well. I thought it was a good move, and you know what, guys, I gotta do something real quick. Because holy shit. Sorry, guys, about that. I had to open up a door because I'm so freaking warm in here. I don't get it. I'm in Wisconsin. It's middle of September, and I'm like humid as hell out. Okay, back to As I Lay Dying with their latest album. So the one thing I have to say about this one, especially with Blinded, is so far Nick Hippa on the guitar was the absolute highlight of the whole entire song, because it has a rapid pace to it all the way through, and it keeps that energy, kind of actually keeping that classic sound, higher toned guitar solo as well, but it just keeps bringing the energy. It's what the song is built off of, and it is a fantastic song. And actually, out of all the songs, this was probably my favorite, was Blinded. Now, Shaped by Fire, this was the song, the titular song that was released, and I did really like the meme behind it, because it's kind of how you get shaped by the bad times, and, you can either see those moments of adversity as challenges or opportunities. I love the pace on this one, because it's a little bit slower than Blinded. It has a little bit more emotion, especially in the intro. But then with As Lay Dying, you're going to get that full-on metalcore smoke show, which does really work. And I'm just going to keep saying it, Nick Hippa on the guitar overall. So overall, especially when it comes to this album, I kind of just went through some of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, actually, because that's probably just going to be boring as all hell. I'm just going to give you the overall what's best about this album and what's worst about this album. So, what's best about As I Lay Dying when it comes down to it, and what is best about the Shaped by Fire album? So, overall, there are 3 major points I really like on this album. And one of them is the chorus on almost every single song, because they went mostly clean, straight clean vocals for almost every single one. And I honestly think they basically never missed the mark on this one. They really played well, especially with the underlying instrumentation, because it was mostly all metalcore instrumentation. And it really did work here, because it played it off so well, and it didn't seem too stale when it came down to the fact that that classic metalcore construction is every kind of vocal is unclean except the chorus. The chorus remains pretty clean. But there were times when that chorus did get mixed up. Like on the song Only After We've Fallen, they mixed the unclean vocals from Tim and the clean vocals in there as well, and I thought, you gotta be kidding me, this worked out really well. On a song like Gatekeeper, they really kept it all unclean, which again, is a great move, especially when you're not going to overkill it, and it just works with the construction of it. I want to speak to a couple other specific chorus, like Blinding. It's like, have you I've been feel blinded by. I would probably mess it up, but I really liked how the chorus played off on this one because it was that huge contrast to the unclean vocals from Tim. And Shape by Fire, that one I gotta talk about the chorus as well because it had this kind of like very clean and crisp sound that like, have I heard this before? If you listen to Shape by Fire's chorus, you're gonna probably think about, this is a faster and harder like kind of style that the Scorpions from the 80s would use on a song called No One Like You. It really kind of mixed with that very well. And I thought, you know what? This is really working well. And at the pitch of them too on each song, you're not gonna get the same pitch. Sometimes the clean vocals are gonna have a little bit of a higher pitch like they did on Undertow, and sometimes they're gonna have a little bit of a lower pitch and more of a beat down tone like in a song such as Torn, Between, and The Wreckage. Like, it's gonna end up changing around a lot, and I can't really say enough about it because I think it was really good and it was really well done. I think the biggest praise I have to give on this whole entire album when it comes to what's the best part about it is Nick Hippa on the guitar. Because, oh my absolute God, I do not think that there was one instance on this whole entire album where Nick Hippa was slightly off. He was always on point or overly, overachieving on everything to the point where no matter what the song was, you can always enjoy it for Nick Hippa's guitar work. He never relents on any of it when it comes to the changing of the song, when it comes to, you've got the verses that are going to be a certain way, the chorus is going to be a certain way, or the pre-chorus is going to be a different way. They're going to end up having these changes, but he is the ultimate driver behind every single song to the point where he's the one that's actually driving the emotion. It's not Tim's vocals. It's not the clean vocals in the chorus. It's not the drum beat and how it makes you feel. It is the guitar work in every single song. It is the emotional driver. If you take out the lyrics in every single song and you just play the guitar and just have that be the shining light of it, it really does work here. And I think that was I think it could be a great move by them to give that a shot. I really want to try that out by removing all the vocals and just hearing that guitar work. I think it might be the best way to go about it. But my God, did Nick Hippa do a good job with the guitar work, specifically on this album. I thought it was just one of the most fantastic things I've heard this year. So, I mean, surprising? Hell yeah, this is definitely surprising. And one thing I've been big on this year is, and I think it kind of started last year as well, especially when it came to the Architects Holy Hell album, because with Architects Holy Hell album, they went so honest with their lyrics, especially when they were going and talking about the death of Tom Cyril and kind of the band's emotional response to it, going through the 5 stages of grief, denial, I think it's denial, fear, bargaining, anger, acceptance. I probably messed those up in terms of, or I know denial is one, acceptance is last, but when they kind of just were it showed the honesty about it. It really did work. Sleeping with Sirens and Kellen Quinn 2 weeks ago did the exact same thing with how it feels to be lost. And why did I say how it feels to be lost? Because there's probably a different name for the album. Oh, it is How It Feels to Be Lost. I kept thinking about I would keep thinking it was Leave It All Behind. My God, something's not right with my head. My head. Something's not right with my head. But I love it when the bands have been doing this because it's showing an emotional and honest side to them. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that's really gone deep dive into it. I mean, it's going to be different with something like Flesh God Apocalypse, where they had this certain thing about poison throughout the whole entire thing, like poisoning yourself with this, that, all the 7 deadly sins as well. Which, again, I'm not going to knock on this one. I think that's a really cool concept as well. And the only reason I'm adding that in here is because it kind of shows the contrast where, this isn't the one thing that is cool, like going full on honesty isn't the only thing that's working in music today. I'm trying to think of some other bands that just went full on honest with their lyrics at the moment. And I think, Sleeping with Sirens is probably, and Architects from last year are probably the best grouping to really go with. And I have to put As I Lay Dying in there as well, mostly because when it comes down to it, the lyrics were kept relatable for every single person. So there were a lot of metaphors put in. It wasn't something like, I don't think with Kellen Quinn, where he just went straight up after it and had a little bit more metaphors in there. This one was definitely more metaphorical to the point where you could really relate to it on your own life and on your own terms. However, there was enough in there so you know that what Tim was talking about, everything since the release of Awaken and his arrest, the reasoning behind it, and what had happened up until, and you can really get a feel for it, and you can really get the honesty behind it. So I thought the lyrics and how they were played off here were really done well. Now, of course, I gotta take a look at the other things I didn't like about the album. Like, okay, so what didn't I like? Because you're gonna like stuff, but what didn't I like? And I really have one bone to pick with this album, and it's on some of the songs, such as Take What's Left and Gatekeeper. I didn't really like how the unclean vocals, now this is specific to the unclean vocals, and the underlying instrumentation really mixed together. I just felt like they didn't really mix up, and ended up hindering the overall quality of these songs to the point where Nick Hippa's guitar work was still, again, the underlying factor of why this album kept chugging along and why it was a good album. However, it just, some of these songs, like I mentioned them already, they just didn't sound like they meshed well together, and it kind of threw me off a little bit where I'm like, you guys are doing well, and all of a sudden, like, Gatekeeper came on and Take What's Left came on, I'm like, something doesn't just seem right here. Now, this could be me just being very nitpicky with this one, but, I mean, it could be a problem with the long layoff they had, the long hiatus they had. Just that chemistry isn't fully back there yet. I don't think it ever will be, but, I mean, with this album, they got really damn close. Overall, I think it was a great album for the band. I think it's one of their best. They had that similar kind of return that Architects did following the death of Tom Cyril, and I really did like kind of how they kind of brought it back together. The guitar work, again, from Nick Hippa is incredible, and I love how they kind of kept it hard and they never took their foot off the gas, especially with that last song, too, because the last song is called The Toll It Takes. What that song does is it starts out with a slower tone to it and kind of is going to build up into something, and you're like, okay, what's it going to build to? Is it going to be an outro kind of song? But then after that intro, it goes into full-on metalcore glory and metalcore smoke show, which I'm like, you know what? This is something that we definitely need. And this was something where the instrumentation explored a lot of different areas, much like Hurricane by I Prevail did, where it's, I mean, but they kept it more in the metal realm. However, it really did work here because they really meshed them really well, and the vocals really kind of went along with it as well, even with the classic metalcore construction. And the pre-chorus is clean. And it really does work, honestly. I really did like it. It gave it a whole nother vibe. And I really liked how that worked out as well because they didn't take their foot off the gas on this one. And is it a potential album pick for the year, like potential album of the year pick? At the moment, I would have to say yes because of the fact that I listened to it through and through. This is one other thing I have to mention too. I listened to it through and through, just straight up. And there were songs I liked on it, but there were songs I really didn't like on it. Such as, I'm trying to think, was it Torn Between or Undertow? Yeah, it was Undertow, the fourth song. It really amplifies this because I really didn't remember it when I was listening to the album just straight on through. But when I was looking at these songs individually, they almost all stood on their own incredibly well. So I'm like, okay, so these songs can all stand on their own, but when it comes to terms of the album, though, overall, some of them kind of can get lost. But I really like how they all stand their own. So overall, what would I give As I Lay Dying's Shaped by Fire out of 10? Going with an 8.5. Now that is more than Architects got last year, but Architects was my number 2 pick for album of the year. Just because they got this high rating doesn't mean that they have the best album overall of the year. However, an album that's going to be middle of the road like a 5 or a 6 isn't going to beat out like an 8 or a 9. However, there could be an 8 that beats out a 9 just because after a while, it might have a lot better staying power after a while. And the reason I say that is because I think I gave New Year's Day's Unbreakable like a 7 or something. But then as time has gone on, I'm not going to lie, it just hasn't had the staying power with me. So there's only 2 songs really kind of had the staying power with me. I think it was Come For Me and Nocturnal on that specific album. But it just hasn't really hit. We'll see what happens with this one. But overall, right now, I am pretty high on this one. 8.5 out of 10. So for As I Lay Dying, I got to say, guys, you did a great job. Now, the second album that came out, and this is specific because one of our followers on Instagram, and he's been on the podcast twice. You guys know him, Anthony, a.k.a. The Real Satan. He's big in melodic death metal, and the Agonist came out with an album called Orphans this Friday as well. Now, with me, I was all in the As I Lay Dying album, but of course, I was going to end up listening to the Agonist album as well. he ended up having me listen to the initial single off the album, which I believe was Burn It All Down. But let me, make sure on that one. And why is Spotify messing me up? Because I'll listen to some of this stuff. Agonist. I believe it was Burn Me Down. Or Burn It All Down. So he had me listen to Burn It All Down first. And I'm not going to lie, when I first heard Burn It All Down, I really didn't like it. Mostly because I thought it just sounded incredibly sloppy. Like, it was just all over the place, and they didn't really connect anything with it. And let me pull up my phone because, hold up. It fell on the ground. How Anthony put it, because I kept telling him, I thought it was sloppy. He says, I'm here just to tell you, he said, I know I respect your opinion. Let me tell you that it's not sloppy. It's done on purpose, and how that's the and it's not sloppy. It's the specific style that is done the same way by everyone. Everything done with changes is done on purpose. Now, when it comes to melodic death metal, Anthony is much more into it than I am. So am I going to take his word on this one, where all these rapid changes and kind of all the changes in style and pace are really done on purpose? Absolutely, I'm going to take his word for it, because he's much more into it than I am, and I've seen that from him. So I do have to take it on that. However, when it comes down to, again, this is my opinion, and there's sometimes, like on Burn It All Down, I really did not like how that was done. But then you get songs like In Vertigo, which is the first song on the album called Orphans by the Agonist, which I really like the mixture on the sound on this one. It seemed a lot more blended together when you're jumping between one or the other. It didn't seem so jolty to me, and I actually really liked it. Like, I started listening, I'm like, wait a minute. Liking an Agonist track? No shit. See, that's the one thing I have to remember too, is always give these tracks time. Always give them a listen to, because you're never going to know exactly what you're going to get. And I got to actually thank Anthony for kind of pushing me to listen to this, because there were a couple of tracks on this one that I ended up really liking. So In Vertigo is the first track on the album. I really, really, really did like this one. The other two that really stuck with me was Dust to Dust. This is the 6th track on the album. It kind of had this really instrumentation to it. I really thought it was very interesting, where it kind of reminded me of something like the Dio era Black Sabbath instrumentation. I thought, whoa. What are you guys doing here? Where'd you come up with this idea? And can you not stop coming up with this idea? Because I actually really liked where they were going with it. It got me hooked. I'm not going to lie. Not hooked on the band fully, because I just not a big fan of the genre and of the style. But it got me hooked on that song right away. And the vocals, especially in like the verse, they kind of have a little bit of like a rap rock style to them, which I wasn't expecting. But I loved the change up completely over the course of the album, because it gave the vocals a fresh take. And overall, with Dust to Dust, I like this one. I thought it was well balanced, and overall, I thought it was well constructed. The other song I was big into was the titular song Orphans. Now, when the intro came in, it reminded me something of like a kind of construction of a song that In This Moment would go with, which I thought, oh, this is a little interesting, but let's give it a shot. Let's see what it is. And one thing I got to say is, now this is specific to the lead singer. Let me pull up her name, because, I'm going to end up being like, I just don't want to get it wrong. So if you guys ever listen to the Monday Morning Podcast with Bill Burr, and whenever he's trying to like figure out something, he will actually Google it. And that's what I am going to do right now, because I don't want to mess this up and get yelled at by somebody. I just don't feel like it. Okay, so her name is holy Jesus. Right now, Vicky Psarkakis. Her name is Vicky for sure, but her last name is spelled Psarkakis. So in this one, she was the shining light on this whole entire song for sure. Specifically, again, I'm talking about that titular song, the titular song Orphans, because the pitch was changing consistently on the unclean vocals from this real low and raspy sound that you would expect from any standard metalcore singer that's a man, but she could hit it well. And then she went with that higher pitch kind of unclean vocals, which is more common for female unclean vocalists, which I was amazed at, because the transition between the two was really rapid, but it worked so well on this track. I thought it was something that was absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm really liking this. Like, this is good stuff. And I don't, the other parts of the song, I don't think they were pieced together very well, which is like I was saying with Anthony, where he said that they were, that's on purpose. However, sometimes I think that can be done in a little bit of a sloppy manner. I think it was done a little bit sloppy on Orphans. However, the overall underlying vocals were done incredibly well on Orphans. I was a big fan of it, and I thought, you know what? This ain't bad. Some of the other songs throughout the rest of the album, those are the three I really want to highlight because those are the three I thought were absolutely fantastic. The other ones I had a couple of issues with, where there are some, like, the transitions, sometimes worked out really well, but the vocals seemed like they were a little bit all over the place and just didn't really hit very well, where it's a lot of that erraticness that just kind of comes in there that I'm just not necessarily a big fan of. But remember, guys, this is my opinion on this. If you are a huge fan of the Agonist, you're like, whoa, 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 Kevin, Anthony's totally right on this one. Again, that's your opinion. I respect your opinion, but, this is something that's come from my opinion for a guy who's absolutely big into punk rock, hard rock, and is really kind of starting to fall into metalcore as well since the beginning of the year, thanks to the introduction to me for Motionless in White. So there's that as well. But then there's a lot of other times where some of the other things that happen in here, like the vocals could be spot on, but sometimes the instrumentation could be a little bit sloppy in my opinion. Just the rapid change of the pace and the style as well. Just because I just don't think it was transitioned very well in between the two. Because you can still get that transition where it's very rapid and it works, but sometimes it just doesn't hit my ears right. Again, I'm not knocking the band for trying this and having this as their style because it does work. It's just sometimes it just doesn't hit my ears right, and that's my opinion on it. A couple other things. I want to talk about one other song that really kind of threw me for a loop called Mr. Cold. It was the 5th song on the record. I had this a really weird intro that really didn't make sense to me, but as the song goes on, it had this like metal/80s rock influence melody, which is kind of cool, which I'm like, okay, it's a little weird, but it's interesting. And this is where the vocal range from Vicky was shown off absolutely to perfection. It was perfectly spaced with in between parts of the instrumentation. When the instrumentation would change up, the tone, the style, everything. She showed a lot of range on this one. I thought, yeah, definitely another great track to highlight her vocal range. So overall, when it comes to Orphans by the Agonist, what do I think of it? When I listened to it, I wasn't expecting to like a good amount of it, just because I'm not a big fan of the style of melodic death metal. That's just me, though, guys. That's just my taste. However, I was actually pleasantly surprised with it. I was pleasantly surprised with some of these songs because I thought the transitions were done well at times. I thought the vocal range was done well at times. Like, there was a lot of good pieces here, but there was a good amount of times where I thought it just was sloppy. But again, I got to reiterate to Anthony, those sloppy transitions, I thought, he's saying they're being put there on purpose, and I know he really liked them. But that's just what I'm going to say about that. It's, again, we all have different opinions. Overall, I'm going to give this one a little bit of a higher rating than I thought I was going to. It's better than average. It's about a 6.5 out of 10 overall. So that's what I'm going to stick with on the Agonist. But will I end up featuring the Agonist in one of these tracks that I mentioned as a Song of the Day choice? You know what? It is highly probable to almost certain because there's some good stuff here, guys. I'm not going to lie. There's some good stuff here that I think you guys would actually really like. Now we've got another album that came out this past week, which was Blink-182's 9. So Blink-182, again, came out with another album, and this one had skepticism for me written all over it because everything that's going on with Tom DeLonge, it's just there's a lot of weird things going on, and I wasn't necessarily sure, especially given the album cover, like, okay, this looks like kind of real poppy, real rainbowy. I'm not sure what to really expect from it, and plus, has anyone really cared for Blink-182 post, like 2006, 2007 music? Because everyone's still focusing on like Dude Ranch, their self-titled album, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and definitely Enema of the State for sure. Which at Riot Fest the previous weekend, or not, yeah, like the 13th, yeah, they played the 13th. They basically played all of Enema of the State, which is, again, really cool of them to do. When it comes to new music, it's like, okay, let's see what they got. I listened to it one time through, and this was my take on it. I didn't really have that good of a take on it. It was pretty average, all honesty. Now, the reason I say it's pretty average is because we cannot expect them to recreate like Enema of the State or Dude Ranch or Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. We can't expect them to always strike gold with something like that all the time. And I do understand that. However, when I listened to it straight through, waited like 15, or like had put my thoughts together, waited like 15 minutes before I revisited it, I didn't really remember anything, what's the word? I didn't remember anything to stand out about the album. Like, nothing really stood out to me. It was pretty like, I'm like, oh, it's another Blink-182 record. That's pretty much how I looked at it. And again, I don't want to knock the band for the time it took for them to create it. However, it just sounded like they really doubled down on their style, but there was really no discernible quality to it that really set it up for an immense amount of success, like Enema of the State, like Dude Ranch, like Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, like their self-titled album. I think it's about a 5 out of 10, so it's pretty much middle of the road for them, where I don't think they really took a lot of chances on this one. They're really kind of trying to stay with that classic sound, and they really kind of, again, doubled down on it. They didn't go very far with it, which I thought, you know what, that's not the worst move in the world. However, it was just kind of there. This is kind of the album. It's just kind of there. But it's not I don't think it's their worst outing ever. It just seemed kind of there. Remember, guys, this is my opinion on it. I know a lot of other people are really going to have a different opinion to where if you really, 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 really like Blink-182 style to a T, yeah, you're going to like this album. Myself, I'm not that big onto their style, so I'm like, whatever. Is it something I'm going to really repeat listening to from them? No, I really am not going to. But then again, you guys could be very different. And that's why I always kind of bring that up too, where it's like, if there's something about an album that I really like, yeah, I'm not going to be like, oh, fans of this album fans of the band are really going to like the album. I'm going to be like, you know what? If you like the band, will you like the album? Something like, with Blink-182 at this point, I might be like, yeah, you might actually like it, if you really like that style. Something like with Bring Me the Horizon, I'd be like, if you liked anything before 2015, you're probably going to really be like, what the hell? But then again, that's a story for another day, which is probably going to come in 3 months when we do our album and song of the year candidates for best and worst and most surprising, least surprising, that kind of stuff. And so I got another couple things to talk about with new music. The Foo Fighters released a couple of live EPs, all for Storm Area 51 Day. I actually kind of like the move by Dave Grohl and the gang to release something like this, just because it's kind of to capitalize again on that trend of, Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. Even though only I think it was 75 people actually showed up to the event, to Storm Area 51, and there was kind of a little bit of a party. I think one guy got arrested for peeing in public, which again, it's like, you guys are out in the middle of freaking nowhere. Let the guy just take a pee. Come on. That was the only trouble they had, which is still, at least they didn't have a lot of trouble for that small group size, but man, for the 2.1 million people that signed up, why didn't we storm Area 51? Do we have stuff better to do than clap them alien cheeks? I mean, what's better than clapping them alien cheeks? Come on. Everyone wants to go clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap, clap. Them alien cheeks. Them alien cheeks. So there's that. I do like the movie, but they went with all live stuff. And I was kind of hoping for a little bit of new music. But I'm like, oh, you guys went with live stuff. It's cool. But I was hoping to hear some new music. Now, the other piece of new music news that we did get this week was Saint Asonia and Adam Gontier. Now, this is one that I am stoked for. So they officially announced that Flaw Design. Well, we already knew that Flaw Design, and we knew what the album cover was going to look like. But they officially announced the release date and the release of their brand new single, Beast, which is on the album. Second single following The Hunted, which came out back in July. So, of course, naturally, as I like what Adam Gontier does with what he did with 3 Days Grace, and now he's doing Saint Asonia, I really do like it. I thought I got to give this one a listen, and The Beast has a very, very interesting take on it. And what I mean by very, very interesting take on it, I'm like, you know what? I've heard this kind of a sound before, so it's like, what kind of band was influencing maybe The Beast when Adam Gontier's writing? Like, what band might he been listening to when he was writing this song? Because I was trying to pinpoint it. And it came to me rather quickly once I really started trying to pinpoint it, and it was the Foo Fighters. This song sounds like it could easily be sung by Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, and it would be just as good as Adam Gontier and Saint Asonia, which is really kind of cool. Now, at first when I listened to it, after I first heard it, because I'm like, oh, this isn't necessarily as good as The Hunted in my opinion, where it just doesn't have, like, I don't know why, it just didn't feel like it necessarily had that Adam Gontier magic to it. I thought, oh no, this might not be very boding well for the album. But then, of course, give me a day. Let me listen to it a couple of times again. Let me get the feel for it. And I'm still as psyched for the album as I was before, and I don't think it's better than The Hunted, but I still do think it is a good song. It's kind of alluding a little bit more to what the album is going to actually end up being like, and I'm actually pretty stoked for it because, I'm looking at that album cover again, and I still don't know what's better. I have no idea. Is it Saint Asonia's album cover from this year, or is it Alter Bridge's album cover from this year with Walk the Sky? I'm going to actually probably, you know what, on the day, on the day one of them releases, I'm gonna put a poll up on Instagram or something that has you vote, like, which is the cooler artwork? Is it Saint Asonia's or is it Alter Bridge's? Because they're both so freaking cool. So I gotta ask you guys that question, but I'll ask you guys that question online so you guys can actually vote for it. And I want to see what the public thinks. I want to see what you guys really think. So we're gonna go from there. Yeah. So for new music, that's pretty much what we got. We got a great As I Lay Dying return. We got, for me, a rather surprising Agonist album with parts that I really did like to it. We had a rather run-of-the-mill album from Blink-182, a very interesting single from Adam Gontier with Saint Asonia, and capitalizing on it as always, Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. That's not the only thing I've talked about, though, is new music, though, because I actually got a couple of cool things with concerts, though. So one thing I wanted to do was when I didn't remember announced the Degenerates tour with I Prevail and Beartooth. Of course, I really wanted to go to this show. I saw it. I was stoked for it. Wanted to go to it. Now, when it first came out and tickets first went on sale, I was at my old job where I had no more days of vacation left, so I couldn't go see the show for a couple of reasons. One, they didn't come to Milwaukee, so they're not coming to Milwaukee whatsoever. Second, when they are in the place closest to me, which is Chicago, it's on a Saturday night where I'm always doing something with my family on that specific Saturday of October, because we always would do trick or treat basically at my neighborhood ever since I was a kid. So I always go around trick or treating, and now it's just a huge party for all the adults, and I really like going to that kind of thing. So I'm like, as much as I would want to go see I Prevail, Beartooth, and of course A Day to Remember, which I will end up bringing up A Day to Remember after I go through this little bit of a story, I was like, that's a train, guys, so don't mind that. Choo-choo, motherfucker! Well, because I had to open my door and the other windows are open because it's just so freaking hot in here. Yeah, I live by the Amtrak that goes between Milwaukee and Chicago. Well, I'm in Milwaukee, but I live close to the Milwaukee, basically train station. Yeah. So back to this tour. Now they were going to be playing the next night, which was a Sunday night up in Minneapolis. Now, my buddy Chris, he was on as our, midway through the year review for 2019 podcast. He's going to go to the show with his wife. One of my other friends who's really big in music, he's going to the show too. I'm like, well, shit, no, I got to go to this show. And I really it wasn't me saying like, shit, I got to go to this show because it's something that needs to be done. This was me saying like, shit, I need to go to this show because I actually really want to be there. So when I changed jobs, and all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, you get like 5 days vacation. I'm like, yeah, so can I put in time off for that Monday after the Minneapolis show so I can drive to Minneapolis on that Sunday, see the show, and go back? Took a couple of days, and all of a sudden I saw an email saying, yep, it's approved. You're good to go. So I bought the ticket right then and there. Haha. Now I'm excited to go because I get to see Beartooth for the first time, which I thought they had the best album of the year last year. We got album of the year contender with I Prevail's Trauma, and I get to see them this year. And then you get to see A Day to Remember, who's coming out with an album in November this year, so I'm going to see him before the album is released. Now, you guys know, like I've said, I'm not the biggest Day to Remember fan. That's basically all based upon past experiences with people who really liked the band I never really connected with, and now that those people are no longer in my life, it's kind of like I connect that band with them. However, the day I bought the ticket, I was actually had this urge to listen to A Day to Remember on my way from the gym into work, and then while I was at work for a little bit. Now, of course, I'm not going to listen to, like, every single A Day to Remember song. Like some people would, who are big fans. Again, totally okay. Oh, my God, I'm not feeling good. Burping all over the place. So I was listening to a lot of stuff off of What Separates Me From You, like All I Want Is Complicated, All Signs Point to Lauderdale, Better Off This Way. Some things off of Homesick. Right Back at It Again is one of my favorites off of Common Courtesy. And then Paranoia as well. I'm not a big fan of their new Degenerate song, but we'll see what happens when it comes the album time, Degenerates. I think that's what they're calling the album as well, but we'll see again what happens all there. In the end, though, I'm actually kind of getting excited to go see A Day to Remember. I've heard their shows are absolutely, freaking off the wall, ridiculous when it comes to the mosh pits. I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to be in that, because I mentioned last week about why I love the mosh pit so much. Yeah, I definitely want to jump into that again. You get Beartooth, you get I Prevail, and you get A Day to Remember. Oh my God, you're going to get content from me or just me getting bounced around all over the place and trying to get people to crowd surf, because of course I'm going to be on the floor for this shit. There is no way I'm not going to be on the floor for something like this. I love being on the floor because then you get to mosh, you get to hang out with all the people, you just have a great time at a concert. That's what I love about it. Now, the last thing I have to talk about is... So this happened on Friday the 20th. Now, this is actually kind of funny. So, you guys all know not Black Flag. You guys all Anti-Flag, right? So, Anti-Flag, I saw them a week and a half, or 2 weeks ago, actually, here in Milwaukee. Or was it a week ago? No, 2 weeks ago in Milwaukee. Yeah, 2 weeks ago in Milwaukee. Where they're with H2O and Pennywise, and I really liked the show. I mean, I've liked Anti-Flag, not too much, though, but I really liked them after the show. I like a good amount of their music before the show, and I like a lot more of it. And I'm just a punk rock kind of guy. That's just the way it rolls. And I thought, shoot, I would really like to go and see them again. Because at the moment for concerts, it's once my birthday hits, like, I looked at my concert schedule, like, I was done for the year. Like, completely done. Which didn't necessarily make me very happy, mostly because my last one's going to be the Crown the Empire Falling in Reverse show in Madison on November 30th, which I'm like, oh, man, I just want to do something in December. That's where Anti-Flag comes to the rescue. They sent out something on Friday, like late morning, early afternoon. I remember this because I was in a training at work at a conference call, and I was just bored as all hell at this moment because I just was after you're on there for like 2.5 hours, like you just need to get some kind of stimulus. So I looked on Instagram, and I saw that Anti-Flag was going to do a show on December 20th, which is another Friday, in Chicago, which got me thinking, whoa, in Chicago? Could I possibly go to this thing? And it was like a $25 ticket, and I saw it. I was like the first in the comment, I'm like, I gotta get tickets for this. And I looked at the link in the bottom, like, okay, let's go to the link. I'm like, oh, that's not bad for a ticket price. Let's see what we got here. Oh, check out, bing, bang, boom. Before you knew it, I was all done. I'm already set to go and see Anti-Flag 5 days before Christmas in Chicago. And that one I can't wait for, because especially when I saw them with Pennywise and H2O, I thought they had the best show. Now I want to see what happens when they're the headliner and we get the Anti-Flag crowd. Plus, when it comes to Chicago, I've really only been able to mosh in Chicago at their concerts like twice, I think. And it was for Papa Roach and Rise Against during the Night We Stole Christmas 2017 at the Aragon Ballroom. And I really want to go back to a show at the Aragon because the Aragon is so freaking cool. And then at Riot Fest this year with, again, Rise Against. This would change it up with Anti-Flag. And some of the best time to have moshing is in Chicago, but I love doing it in Milwaukee. It's when you get that upper Midwest, you get that Chicago, Madison, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, you kind of get that kind of scene. Oh my God, do these people go mosh heavy, and it is absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. It is, they go hard. Not gonna lie, they go hard, but again, at the end of it, everyone is just like feeling great, getting high fives, people getting hugs, people getting sweaty as all hell, but man, I cannot wait to go and do that, and especially for the fact that I now have a show in December to go to. Stoked for it. I think it's up to like 20 concerts for me. And again, when I say concert, it's when I saw that Under Oath Skillet Breaking Benjamin show, that's not 3 concerts, that's 1. So when I see, on a day, if I go to a venue, that's 1. So Riot Fest was all 1. However, 30 Seconds to Mars, that was 2 because there's one Saturday, one Sunday. So the day difference really makes it 2 days, or 2 different concerts kind of thing. Plus it was 2 different shows as well, which is pretty cool. So I've seen a good amount of bands already this year. And there's a good amount I'm going to see twice. Like, I've seen Rise Against twice so far. I'm going to see In This Moment twice. I have seen Skillet twice. I will be seeing Disturbed twice. Anti-Flag is going to be another twicer. Do I have any other ones that are going to be twicers? I don't really think so. We'll see what happens as time goes on, but guys, I'm excited for this. Plus, next week we have a couple other new albums coming out, and I will definitely be commenting on them as well because we have 3, if you can believe it. We have absolutely 3 albums. We have Hell Yeah coming out with their album, which I believe is a tribute to Vinnie Paul all over the place. We also have Of Mice and Men coming out with Earth and Sky, which I am stoked for because I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic given the 4 singles that have come out so far. And we get a new Dragon Force album as well, and if everyone knows, anyone who played Guitar Hero knows who Dragon Force is. I'm just curious to see what they come up with, honestly. And then October, we do get a good amount, but let's finish out September real quick. If you are going to Louder Than Life this weekend in the... What was it, in Kentucky or Tennessee? I can't remember which one, but if you guys are going, I am absolutely jealous of you because I really want to be at that show, at that festival, especially the Friday, because that Friday is absolutely stacked. So, if you guys are going to Louder Than Life, have fun. Otherwise, everyone, have a fantastic week. Keep listening to music. Keep enjoying what you're doing. This is me, Kevin, from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by My Sunny Day Rock 2000 to today. And as always, I will end with a C.